Hello, welcome to our Tailormade Talks. This is episode 6, the series we put together to help you guys, our audience, get to know our team much better. Today, I'm delighted to have my co-founder and business partner, Gavin Butler, with me. Gavin, you're very welcome. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Let's kick straight off.
How did Tailormade come to exist? I suppose when we got started, I met you originally in a gym, funnily enough.
Yeah, literally just...
Yeah, literally right beside us, funnily enough. I was actually doing PT out of there.
Yeah.
I won't get into that rabbit hole, but basically I was self-employed working from there.
Yeah.
You were doing physio at the time.
Yeah.
Long story short, I ended up leaving that place and building a client base for myself. I actually ended up leasing, I was gone anyways, and I had arranged a unit to do.
I remember you actually, we got friendly, I think we similar training things, and you actually rang me and I was helping you find a building.
Yeah, you are actually.
I remember us walking around town.
At one stage, I was actually going setting up the gym. If you remember, there was this absolute dump of unit. Thank God I didn't do that. But in the end, anyways, I was going setting up a one-to-one in just a small little unit. But you ended up having a small little room. It was literally, I'd say, what would you say, about 10 meters square, if even?
Yeah, 10, 15 meters square, it was tiny.
If even.
You'd fit one rack in there.
I had a rack, had a few little dumbbells in there. Basically, it was in the same place you were doing physio. I had the intention
I think that was 2016, if I'm right.
Yeah, it would have been. It was 2018 that we opened Tailormade, so it would have been about 2 years before that. And I think I had the intention of opening the gym anyways. You were a little bit quieter about your ambitions, but I think you wanted to open gyms as well.
Yeah.
Took you a while to say that to me. Yeah. But we used to have lots of conversations, and we decided to open up the gym there in Cashel.
Yep.
And I suppose that was kind of it. You kind of took on the role at the time of, I just coached and that was it.
Yeah.
You did everything else. And yeah, we just coached every hour of the day, and that was Tailormade at the time.
Perfect. So that was like 2016. You left the gym, we started working together in the same building, both self-employed. You were doing PT, I was doing physio. Got friendly, similar training philosophies, signed the lease on this shopping centre in 2017 and opened up the first gym in April 2018. If we could, because I want to pull it out here, where our mindsets were, where your mindset was in 2018. So what was, from your perspective, the intention behind opening that first gym? Like where were you and where were we with our thinking around training? Like what was, just if you remember those times. Yeah,
I suppose I just had a dream like most coaches. I was, like most coaches, I just wanted to open a gym.
Yeah, I think this is class because there's loads of people watching that will, like, maybe they don't have a gym, they're a PT, and they'll want to hear this story.
Yeah, so that's what I envisioned. I think it was the thing to do for a coach. You were either going to go down the route of working with teams, all of that route, or you're going to go down the route of opening a gym, and that was kind of the dream, and that's what I had envisioned. So that was kind of it. I remember the book, The E-Myth.
Yes, E-Myth Revisited by...
I remember reading that book, and it was around that time where I started to think a little bit bigger, that like, oh, we have one gym. What do we do now?
Yeah.
We could franchise it, we could open more, there's loads of things that we need to do, and it was around that time when I started to see that, okay, you actually have to sort of build systems.
Yeah.
You can't just coach every hour of the day yourself.
Yeah. I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time around this opening because I think people will find it interesting. So we met in 2016, probably worked together for 18 months, 2 years, got to know each other. We signed the lease in November 2017, I believe, or we started the company. But we actually didn't open that first gym till April, which was a good few months.
Yeah.
Like, we painted the gym ourselves.
Yeah,
like
that was a nightmare.
Like, I remember it was snowing in March 2018 before we'd opened the gym, and it was like snow everywhere, and we were bringing in pallets of equipment. Yeah. So I think it's important to note, because like people will see us now 6 years on, 7 years on, with 5 gyms, and they'll have a certain perspective of us. But I think it's important that we tell it how it was in 2018.
Not only did we paint the gym, we painted it with a paintbrush and a
spray
roller. We didn't even think of a fucking roller. Oh man.
Yeah, so that was early 2018. And what product were we delivering just there? How was your daily schedule like early 2018 in terms of fucking, if you remember those first 6 months?
How was the daily schedule? So it was literally get up, I try and cram. We couldn't actually open the gym until 7:30 because of the shopping centre, and I'd always be up at 5 anyway. So I get up, I do my study in the morning before I go. I always try to keep a book or something on the go. Go to the gym, would coach from 7:30 until I think it was 11:30. Then I do my training session. Then I do sales calls for the afternoon. I'd have, at the very early days, you were coaching all those hours as well and doing physio. During the afternoon, I'd cram in some PT, one-to-one PT. I still held on to a little bit of that at the start. You were still doing physio. Then in the evening, we'd start coaching again from 4 o'clock until like, was it 8 or 9 o'clock? Yeah. And then for a while, we even would have more physio, more PT people in after that.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much, it was just
that was
like...
pretty much it till we hired Paul and a few people and we started to... Brilliant. I think that gives a good insight as to like the background there. We'll touch a bit more on the business stuff. But I'm going to pivot into you, right? Because I want the audience to get to know Gavin, who Gavin was, who he is, how he got to where you are. So who was young Gavin in school? Were you a bold pup? Were you a good kid? Give us an idea. Like primary school, who was Gavin?
Primary school, oh Jesus, we're really going to go there. All right. No, I think I hated school for one thing. I hated
primary school?
I hated primary school, I hated secondary school. You could ask my mother. I used to hide keys in Lego bags. Do you remember those old cars where you could lock from the inside?
Yes.
I remember was it like baby infants or senior infants where I'd like my mother go out and there was one day I locked her out and she had to bribe me with chocolate to get me out. I absolutely hated it.
And what was it that, like, it was just from day one?
Like, you know what it's like with me in an office, like it was even worse back then. I just hate, I don't know what it is.
Is it the sitting down?
I think it was just boring, like. It was I remember every single day just felt like...
Which is interesting because my perspective on you is I would say like you've got your degree from Thurles.
Yeah.
You mentioned there a minute ago you always have a book on the go or always studying. So I would say you are quite studious. I would say.
I am now.
Right. So I'm interested. Yeah. Right. So school day one hated it. So was primary school a challenge then, or like?
Primary school and secondary school were both challenges. If anything, I would say I actually struggled through school.
Okay, this is really interesting.
I really struggled through school. And I think there was just such a lack of interest. I struggled to retain the information. I had no interest in the information, nothing.
Okay, so this is great because I think this is stuff people might know about you. And people will watch this and gain confidence from listening to your story as well. So, didn't like school, struggled a little bit. Where did sport start coming into play? Because obviously in Ireland, sport and school kind of go hand in hand from primary school onwards. Where did that start? Boxing was first?
I actually played a bit of football. Okay. And I think this is where a lot of some of my coaching tendencies have probably come from. I wasn't very good at sport. Okay. I would have played Gaelic football. Right. We had a strong enough team, Clannan GA, pretty strong team.
Clannan is the
Clannan GA, yeah. And I would have often been the sub. I'd have been the first sub, so if somebody got injured or something, I'd be the first one on. But nonetheless, I was a sub. And I think that's a hard thing for a kid growing up to always be on the bench. And I really hated that. It used to wear at me.
Right. Okay. So football, because most primary schools, if you're rural, it's all hurling football.
Yeah, it's football out of our way, no hurling really.
So played football for the club, didn't really start, but you kept on, you stuck with it?
I stuck with it through primary school, but I think as I was coming into secondary school, or maybe even the last year of primary school, I actually dropped it. Okay,
so about sixth class, first year, you dropped football. Perfect. Yeah. And what did you, where did sport go then? Was it there you got boxing or?
So I suppose, funnily enough, I got into a little bit of boxing maybe early in school, and then I fell out of it. So I was actually late enough starting boxing. I was 15 before, I was about 15 years of age before I got properly serious about it.
Third year?
About third, fourth year, yeah.
Okay.
So cool. A bit of a late.
Interesting. So football through primary school, but never really clicked for whatever reason. There was a little gap, and then you took up boxing. Was there any other sports that you played in school?
No, that's it really.
Okay.
So yeah, 15 took up boxing. Absolutely loved it.
Right, straight away.
I just loved it. Okay. Yeah, it was great crack.
What was it about boxing that just lit a fire in you? What was?
I suppose one thing I quite liked about it is it's down to you. You can't blame anybody else.
Yeah.
You have either boxed well or you haven't. You can't blame. You're fully responsible.
Yeah.
And for the result that you get from it, it's all on you. And I think I quite liked that.
Okay. Like that sense of responsibility, maybe?
Yes. Or maybe there could have been a part of that as well.
Okay.
Rely on anybody else, but I think the responsibility thing, I really liked the whole discipline of it. If I'm honest, I think I liked the training of boxing more than I actually liked the sport of boxing. Right. And that led to, we can get on to that in a little while, but that led to me leaving the sport to go down other avenues. Okay, cool. So hated school through primary school. Was that, did that, were you always trying to get out of school then? Or did you just go to keep your parents happy, or just what? I think I just went to keep my parents happy. If I'm honest, I wanted to leave. When I was in secondary school, I wanted to leave school, but there's no way my parents were ever going to have me leave school. I had to leave, sir. So I wanted to leave school, and join the army. If I could have done that at 13 years of age, I would have probably done it.
Okay. Right.
So that was my ambition.
Okay.
Going through secondary school, I was going to join the army, or I remember Googling stuff like how to join the CIA and all of this stupid
What age were you when
I
you were
was
doing
like
that?
13, 14,
Okay,
maybe
right.
even 15.
Right, okay.
But that's the stuff that I was...
Interesting. That's really, really good, and I'm glad you're sharing this. So, through school, dropped the football, started boxing.
Yeah.
Getting towards leaving cert, you were still boxing around that stage?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
Okay, so that was the only sport you were doing, say, leaving cert year, just boxing.
Yeah.
You got through to leaving cert?
Yes.
Right, and
yeah.
like no interest in school, but you managed to get through to leaving
I
cert.
hate, like, I did, I will say, my dad might argue with me, but I would say that I would have worked hard at the tail end of school. I would have worked hard. I was like, look,
I may as well try. Where did that switch? Or was it always the case?
I think it was probably sixth year.
Okay. Leaving cert year, you're like, fuck it.
Like I'd have plotted a way to do what I had to do, like, you know.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I would have. Or my dad would have killed me. So
Okay, fair enough. Out of necessity, I'm not going to...
I would have. Yeah, I would have. I remember, was it junior cert? I can't. Early in school, I remember I got in a little bit of trouble with teachers and stuff.
Being a bit rebellious?
A small bit, yeah. That didn't go down too well at home.
No,
so.
I'd imagine that. Okay, so did your leaving cert. From the leaving cert, because you obviously went into S&C, which we'll talk about in a second, but did you know that that's the career choice when you were doing the leaving, or how did that come about?
Why did I apply for S&C?
Yeah, so how did you go from leaving cert to the S&C degree in Thurles? Was that like a conscious, I'm going to do this?
No, it was more of a case of like, I wanted to join the army, right?
Okay.
I was going to join the army as soon as I was finished leaving cert, and that was it. I had no other, that's what I was doing. But then I finished leaving cert, and that's when the recession was there.
Okay, so 2008, 9.
Yeah, so they weren't recruiting in the army. So
right.
What else am I going to do? Well, the only thing I was interested in was sport, and by sport, I think I just loved training. I loved training hard. I loved the discipline of it. I loved getting fit. I loved getting strong. I loved the feeling of being fit, being strong, all of that. So that was the only thing I was interested in. And I remember actually watching, because I was a big fan of boxing, and I remember watching, it was a Manny Pacquiao documentary.
Yeah.
And he had, I was like, oh my God, that is so cool, a strength and conditioning coach. Anyways, and that was the end of it.
Okay.
But then when I was, obviously, when you're filling out the CEO for the leaving cert and stuff like that,
have to put down something.
Look at it, so I just put down, I seen, strength and conditioning, let's put this down. Let's put sports science down. Let's put sports science here, sports science there. Done.
What's interesting is you didn't like school, primary school or secondary school. Was college, so you only went to college because you couldn't get into the army. So it was a stopgap.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was the plan. Yeah.
And how did you feel about going to do a 4-year degree off the back of knowing you didn't really like school? Was that like, I'm going to like this because of the course, or like...
I had to do something. I remember the CEO results, I was actually in Santa Ponza. My poor mother was awful stressed. Yeah, it was a lad's holiday in Santa Ponza. And this is when the CEO results were coming in, and Mom was getting on to me like, Gavin, what are we going to do? We have to make a choice there. And it was kind of a case like, sure, what did I get? And got strength and conditioning, and it was something to do with sport. And I was like, yeah, sure, look, that sounds interesting, let's go. That was kind of it. I didn't really think much of it.
Did your leaving, went on a lad's holiday, the September straight after the leaving, you were straight down to Thurles to do year 1 of the degree?
Yeah.
Brilliant. So how did that go, those 4 years of being in college?
You know what, I'll actually say pretty well. I loved it.
Okay.
Which is funny, like.
Right.
Because I hated education, but I genuinely loved, I don't even think it was just college as such, but it was like, I think it was like a lot of my old training philosophies then is like, you just train hard, you just run, because you know, you hear about boxers, they run 5 miles a day, so I'd run 6 miles a day, and that's going to make me better than them, and all this sort of stuff, and you do loads of sit-ups, and if you do sit-ups, you get a 6-pack, and if you get punched in the tummy, it's not going to hurt you, and all of these mad beliefs. And I remember from the first day, because I'd be the type of person in the class that if I'm interested in something, I'd perk up and I'd ask questions and I'd challenge the lecturer and stuff like that. And I remember getting really challenged on a lot of my beliefs, and I quite liked that. Okay. And I think I quite liked just being exposed to all of this stuff around training that I just had no awareness of whatsoever, and I think I found it fascinating.
Okay.
So that was kind of the start of.
Brilliant. We're going to leave the kind of younger journey there, but we are going to come back to the training philosophy and the education later on. I'm going to now pivot to today, right? So for people that don't know, what's your current function within Tailormade Coaching? So obviously we've got 5 sites, we've 18 staff, we look after over 600 members. What's your day-to-day role and what's your function within Tailormade at the moment?
Yeah, so I think like that's a question where like as a founder in a business, you're always asking yourself that question, and you're always trying to because you can envision the growth of the company, and for it to grow to that position, you know that you need to get out of the position that you're in. So you have to elevate people around you, help upskill people around you, get them into your position so you can move on to another position. So like it's always changing, and because you're a founder and nobody has done that in your company before you, you can get mentors and all the rest of it, but nobody's really done what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to figure these things out.
Yeah.
So if I'm to say right now, today, what is my function right now, and I'm sure it'll probably change in another couple of months, the way it is. I think it's mainly product systems around product development, and with that it requires a certain amount of management of the systems and all the rest of it.
By product, what do you mean by product?
Sorry, so so what I mean by product, so when we refer to product, we refer to all things in terms of like on the gym floor. What is the coach's service we provide when people come into us in the gym? When people are away at home, do we have other systems that we can support them as well? And right now in the company, it's on me in terms of like the systems around that. I'm no longer the person on the ground that is coaching people directly, but at the same time we have 5 gyms, so we do need to have certain ways of doing them and allowing freedom within those systems. To me, I suppose at the moment, to make sure that I can communicate with the team, give them the support that they need. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Good. Mainly it.
That's exactly what I want. Can you, and I'm going to hit you with a couple of questions. Can you give like 3 standout positive moments over the last maybe 2 years within your current roles within the business? Like standout, just 2 or 3 like standout things that you think back and be like, that was class.
I'm going to pick one, and I'm not going to name a name on it,
Fine.
because it just comes to mind because it's a member of the team.
Okay.
And I just remember, so part of my job, because it's all things on the gym floor, and it's with that comes hiring, and with that comes management of the team, giving support to the team. But I remember there was a particular head coach would have been, I'm going to say, struggling about a year ago. And it sounds harsh, but as a business owner, you always have to put the individual above yourself. You have to do what's right for the company, otherwise you're going to go out of business pretty quickly. At that time, that person was struggling with the role, and I had to apply an awful lot of pressure. It wasn't easy for me, but it had to be done. You remember that as well, and I just think it was really cool. We applied that pressure, but that individual on his own, he took all of the feedback on board. He has now developed into an outstanding head coach, to a point where we have our Tailormade. So one of the awards is Kaizen, which basically means like continuous improvement, getting better every day. That head coach actually came up with that value.
Yeah.
And because of how much he improved, it just felt really good to be able, in front of the team, say, this is why you've gotten the award, and actually give him the award. That just felt really good.
That's class. Can I get 1 or 2 more from you?
Sure, so...
Because I think these are brilliant.
Yeah.
They're brilliant insight.
I'll give another one as well, very recent one as well. So I remember another head, I'm not going to give names on this one, I don't think that would be fair, but there was another head coach that the gym at the back a year ago, we'll say, it was struggling by quite a lot. But this guy, again, he got the Kaizen award value the first time we ran it. He put in so much work, and it was really frustrating for us. And I remember, because I'm a little closer to the ground, and I remember you saying to me, Gavin, scores aren't being put on the door here, like what's going on here, and I'm like, hold on, Fionn, I'm telling you, the work is being put in, the systems are in place, the work is being put in, just be patient, it's going to come, And even before the numbers, and by numbers, what I mean by numbers, the numbers that are important to a gym, revenue is obviously one of them, but another one is attrition rates, so how many members that are leaving the business, because if that's high, it means that the product, the coaching service that we're providing is really good. And at the time, the attrition rates were out of control in that facility. And I remember I actually gave the Kaizen award, and it probably didn't make sense to anybody, because if we were to look at the scores on the door, they weren't there yet. But now, right now, within the company right now, that gym is the highest performing gym. So I just thought it was really cool that that guy was putting in the work, so consistent, so resilient, was asking me, Gavin, what's going wrong? You're doing the work, it's going to happen. Yeah. And then eventually, to where we are now, that gym is absolutely flying it.
Class. So just when I pressed you for...
top job to you.
Yeah, just when I pressed you for those 2 positives, both of them were around the development of staff and seeing staff sore after you've directly managed them, mentored them, put pressure on them where needed, given hard feedback, which is sometimes
They've all, in
hard
both
to give
cases,
and hard to receive. But it's massively, how will I say, it's nice for you to look back and be like, Jesus, look how far they've come. So they're the two positives. Could you give two maybe not so good or negatives? Because I think it's good to give not just positive things, but actually the real raw. Give two things that have happened over the last 3, 4, 5, 6 years that you're like, fuck, that was really tough. And that really wasn't nice, maybe.
Okay.
If there is any.
Yeah, look, I didn't particularly enjoy COVID. Like, it was fine, you get on with it. Like.
I don't think anybody did.
But I didn't, on a personal level, the gym floor a lot, and you're so used to being around people every single day to all of a sudden, that's dropped. You're doing coaching in front of a little screen.
Zoom call classes.
Yeah, I think that was a negative experience. I think the whole country can relate to that one.
Fair point.
So I didn't particularly like that one.
Anything else that stands out? There mightn't be, but I said I'd press you and try balance it up.
Not that comes
Which is
to
good.
mind.
And the reason why I asked that is like I don't want the audience to just get all the good stuff. I want to press everybody for the negatives. But if there isn't any,
well, I think the bad stuff, like it can be bad at the time, but like it's part of the development. So
is there anything that comes to your...
Nothing comes to mind, because I think you end up naturally framing it into a positive light, because you're like, because I went through that hardship, I have come out the other side of it, and I'm a better business owner because of it. So you have to go through those challenges.
What's your current favourite aspect of your function within the business right now? Favourite thing that you get to do every day?
I think, and the reason I'm saying this is because when you pressed me there from my two biggest, I think, was it wins you call it, or positives?
Positives.
Both of those things related back to team development. So I think it's anything in that regard, I think, is what I enjoy.
Lovely. Least favourite aspect of the job right now? Not the job, like your function. Like, as you said, you're a co-founder, so your function or job will change. But like right now, what's your least favourite aspect of what you do day to day?
Nothing really comes to mind. Like,
okay, positive guy.
I love my day to day, so I don't know what much I'd change about it.
Excellent, that's fine. And the idea of this is just to be totally honest as well.
I can tell you what I find challenging, if that helps. Right, that might help. It's not necessarily negative, but I have a bit of an addictive personality, as you probably see, and I'm a bit of a workaholic. So you're always going to be working.
Yeah.
But a challenge for me is, and I think any founder can relate to this, is making sure that you're working on the right, because you can always be working. You can be working forever. But it's making sure that you're putting the focus in the things that move the needle. And I find it challenging sometimes if something blows up in a gym. A challenge for me is to not step in. I can often get sucked in sometimes on the gym floor. But like, it's not what the business requires from me. And in fact, by me jumping in there and doing that, it's actually not a good thing for the company overall.
I actually read something last night. It's from Alex Hormozy, and he was talking about challenges they have in their team. And he was talking about playing the short game with your staff versus the long game. And the short game would be jump in and fix it.
Yeah.
But the long game would be actually don't jump in, and how can I teach that staff member to solve it so it doesn't actually happen again or something like that. I just thought I'd add to that. So and it's something that I have to constantly think about as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're both guilty of it.
Brilliant. This is excellent, Gav. How would you describe our company culture?
I would describe our company culture, I would say, particularly in the last year, as growth mind. I think we ran a value workshop last year, and I think that was incredibly impactful. And the values that we got from that, and I can just see particularly since then that we're really living up to those values.
And much more aligned, I would say.
Much more aligned, yeah. And those values for the people listening is Kaizen, that we're always trying to improve with our education, improve what we do in terms of our coaching services, all the rest of it. A second one, I think this is a value that we always valued, which is coaching. So
quality coaching.
Quality coaching. So we value coaching. I've paid fortune in coaching over the years because I learned from them. You've done the same. We value coaching within the team. We do feedback forums with each other across the board all the time, so that we're always putting focus on our coaching. Our CPDs are largely based on what we do in terms of on the gym floor, off the gym floor, all the rest of it. Our last value then, which is connection, personal connection. And I think that is something that, again, in the last year, just with the team in general, you see them at the CPD, everybody gets on, really, like every company says this, but like you can just evidently see guys are getting on. You can even see like Owen from Feather there, the other, was it like a week or two ago, went down to Carrick Gym, did the feedback form thing, did a session, filled the feedback form out after, met Luke for coffee. Like, this type of stuff is like really cool.
Yeah, class. And I think the things that we've put in place since we've done that values workshop, to your point, it's always with the values in mind. So even now we've introduced like a social calendar with community events.
Yeah.
Like, that enhances connection.
Absolutely.
It does a load of things.
Yeah.
And I think our common value between us is that constant Kaizen and constantly getting better and never resting on your laurels. So I think some of the stuff that we've put in play relates back to those values, and everybody seems to be aligned.
Absolutely.
So perfect. So we're going to move on to talking about clients.
Cool.
And I know you're not directly coaching on the gym floor right now. You're almost coaching coaches to coach, right?
Yeah.
But could you tell me about your favorite client transformation that you've directly been part of?
Yeah, I'll tell you the first one that actually comes to mind, because we were just talking about the last quarterly meeting, because I didn't even realize the impact that we had with this person, but I hope she doesn't, I'll say her name, I won't mind. Tressa. And it's not even from the typical transformations. People talk about weight loss and everything else like that all the time, but it's like mindset stuff. And Tressa she actually came to our CPD, which was really cool. And she basically gave an insight into a member's point of view with the whole team.
So impactful.
I was actually talking to her about this morning. Impactful for us as well. She said some things that have really, like, she mentioned how we are educators and how important that is, and I think that is something that I've forgotten about, and you can even see my own socials off the back of that. I've been taking a lot of action because it reminded me of it. But her transformation, not even physique related, it was just mindset related, and she spoke about this with us at the CPD. She talked about how her generation, when she was growing up, it was all about like Special K ads and drop a dress size and just be skinny, 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 and that, you know, being strong was not attractive. So like, and she spoke at the CPD how she remembered arguing with me years ago. So she would have joined us in 2018, back when I think it was like a week after we opened.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I kind of forgotten about it if I'm honest, but when she reminded me, because like members are always challenging me with things when I was on the gym floor, but she would be telling me like, my legs are getting bulky. What am I going to do? I'm trying to get skinny and all of this type of stuff. And I was always trying to educate and help, you know, be like, well, getting strong is really important for, you know, all of these different reasons. Yeah. And I even remember she'd be doing a heavy set in squats, and I'd have to get her walking in between sets because she didn't want to sit still.
Yeah.
Because again, in her head was the Special K, and I didn't realize it at the time that that's where all this was coming from. I just knew that if I want to get her to do this strength training, she's not going to do it unless I get creative here and I get her doing walks and stuff like that. So she came from that mindset to now she's one of the biggest advocates for our business in terms of like she preaches to everybody about us. She preaches to people about the importance of strength training. She sees now how important strength training is to long-term quality of life, bone health, so that we don't lose muscle mass and because of it or quality of life deteriorate. And she's as educated on that as we are.
Yeah.
And I just think that is just powerful. Sorry, I went off on a long one there.
No, that's excellent. Perfect. That's what I wanted. Yeah, well, I forgot what I said. Yeah, well done, Tressa. Your mindset has totally changed. One more question on this topic. How do you feel personally about the impact we're making on people's lives right now?
Really good. I think it's easy to forget about it because when you're a little bit more removed. Yep. So for us, you know, our quarterly meetings or meetups with coaches, when they tell us these stories, it reminds us of that impact. Whereas I think sometimes when we're so far removed, we don't see it every day. Yeah. So it's easy to forget about it. But like having conversations like what we're having right here, it really would just light a fire under you.
Class. Love it. Perfect. We're going to nuance over to you and your training philosophy, right? And the reason why I want to touch on this is we've got 18 people on the team. Fitness is such a broad term, and like, you know, you can fit so much within fitness and the fitness space. But I want to know like your key areas of interest when it comes, and I suppose the main question is, what is your current training philosophy and how has it evolved over the years? You've gone from like the boxer doing your leaving cert who just used to run 6 miles because he thought 5 miles was good, to now Gavin Butler who's basically running the product for 5 gyms. So just give me an idea of your training philosophy now and how it's developed.
Yeah, so it's funny, like back in the boxer day, I did a complete pendulum where I went from like, you know, doing all this running and all stuff to all of a sudden just all strength training, right? And my beliefs back, I think, even early days at Tailormade, and I can hear myself saying this now, free weight body, that was it. I didn't think that like, you know, place like, you see cables here behind us and stuff like that and stuff for isolation-based movement. I didn't see the place in that at the time. I did believe aerobic training was important, but my knowledge base in it was definitely not where it needed to be, because from my own training biases, I didn't read into it as much as I would now. So I think that's kind of how it evolved to where it is now, where I see, like, regardless of what type of training somebody is doing, whether if it is Pilates, whether if it is dancing, whether it's fit, whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, I think all of these things have a place. What I do think is of particular importance, I do think that building muscle and strength, I think those things are really important, because especially as we age, we lose muscle mass. This has a negative impact on our quality of life because we can't move as well. I do believe that our aerobic energy system, by aerobic I don't mean that we're absolutely flogging people to death and everything else like that. I do believe that that is important as well. Again, for similar reasons, so that not so much bone health, but so that we can actually get around every day and we're not like gassed going up the stairs when we're 80 years of age or whatever it is. So I think all of those things in particular are really important, but I think like it has its place.
Okay, brilliant. I think that's a good recap of your training philosophy, and like I've firsthand seen the progress of that, like as the cogs were turning from, even when we started, that free weight, body weight movement to, you know, maybe being exposed to other things and getting to a stage now where you're very much broad on your perspective on it, and like people should train 2-3 times a week doing strength training for all of those reasons, improve their aerobic capacity, and then whatever it is that they enjoy is for everything.
Absolutely.
So I think that's really, really good, because you do see, especially younger PTs and coaches, they pigeonhole themselves.
100%.
And it's almost like, because we're around quite a while now, it's almost embarrassing to look back and be like, Jesus Christ, fucking open your eyes a little bit to some of them.
I think, I'll just touch on that. I think it's perfectly fine to have your preferences. Everyone is going to have their preferences. And everyone, like it or not, we're going to have biases. Everyone has biases, but I think it's just having awareness of those biases, awareness of your preferences. You don't have to go down a rabbit hole of every single discipline, but it doesn't mean that just because it's not your discipline that you shouldn't appreciate that it has its place.
Yep. I think that's a super recap. Moving on to Tailormade and where we are now and where we're going. What are you most excited about now and for the future with Tailormade?
I think as much as business growth is great and open more gyms is great, and that does excite me, and that is where we're going. What excites me more is just improving on what we offer in terms of our coaching services. That's one thing, improving what we offer in coaching services. A second thing I'm actually going to say is team development. So a cool thing about growing to, you know, multiple sites is it doesn't just force us to grow as people, as business owners, but for us to grow, that type of an organization or team has to grow as well. Because if it doesn't, there's roles there that need to be filled, and if they're not filled, we literally cannot expand. So I think those things are what excites me.
Brilliant. There's also a lot of people we know in fitness industry that have had business partners that where the relationship has fallen apart, right? Or they currently have business partners, but it's not working very well. We've been business partners, I think 7 years this month, right? How would you describe our relationship, right?
Didn't expect this question.
Yeah. How would you because do you know why I want to ask is because I know people are interested in our dynamic. I know they are. So from your perspective, how would you describe our relationship now? How would you describe it over the years? Because we've grown massively. We've managed to find our way here. So I just want your perspective on how would you describe our relationship now? How has it changed? And then the third part to that is, how are we still in business together and we haven't killed each other?
I don't know. I still have a full head of hair. I should ask you this question. Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't given it much thought. I think it's safe to say before we opened Tailormade, we evidently have very good similar values.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. We had very similar values. We actually had very similar beliefs in terms of training at the time, and I think both of our beliefs around training has evolved quite a lot since. And I think because we have similar values, we have that mutual respect.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing in business, is figuring out what somebody's values are, making sure that the values are aligned.
Yes.
That's a really crap answer. I know it's kind of hard to.
No, it's good. It's good because I think there might be people thinking about going into business together, and I think this is interesting. So aligned on a foundational level values, aligned at the start and now when it comes to training philosophy. Obviously, we've changed so much as individuals. Our relationship has changed over the last 6-7 years. There's been challenging times, although not too many of them. Like, what would you say are the key things as to why we're...
I think I have the answer.
As to why the business is still together and united and not crumbling and we're at each other's throats, which you see other other business partners at?
You do. And we have spoke to many, in some mentorships we go to, we've spoke to many owners that have had previous partners, and my God, it has been absolutely scary what they had to go through.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing is that we both put the company first. I think that's the biggest thing. We put the company first, so I know, even if I completely disagree with you, because we don't agree on everything.
No.
We've had disagreements this week.
Yeah.
Like, we definitely don't. But because we know, I still know, even if I don't agree with you, I still know that you're basing that on how you view the world, and you're viewing the world, like, your view of the world is still to make Tailormade better, and so is mine.
Yeah.
Like, we might view it differently, but I still know that you're doing it for the betterment of Tailormade, not just for the betterment of Fionn McCullough.
Yes.
And I think you could say the same about me.
I would agree.
And I think because of that, that's probably why, even if we do have a row over something, like, it's never anything major.
I'd imagine it's quite hard to find that. Like, I think we got quite lucky, if I'm honest.
Well, like, if we're to actually look at most, this might sound really harsh now, but like, if you look at most business owners, most businesses, like, I won't get into statistics, but most businesses fail. But most businesses fail because of the business owner.
100%.
And the business owner probably isn't actually putting their business first. In a lot of cases, they're putting themselves first. And that might be a very hard thing to hear, but I think it's the reality. And I do think you put the business first. I'll put the business first above myself. You do it above yourself. And I think because of that, I think that's why we're still in business. We're still growing the thing. We're still driving it forward. And I don't see how that would change. If you have the same values as me, which you do, and that is your vision of growing Tailormade, and my vision is to grow Tailormade, we might argue over what ways to do it and stuff, but ultimately we're still trying to drive the thing forward, and we still have a huge, even though we're trying to grow the business and trying to drive it forward, we really care about team development, about the coaching services that we provide, so it never comes at the expense of those things. In fact, it only makes those things better.
What would you say is your biggest achievement in life to date? He loves these ones. Come on, Gav.
Marrying my wife.
Oh, if you didn't say that now.
Marrying my wife.
What would you say is your biggest strength?
My biggest strength, which is also probably a big weakness of mine in many ways. But I think my biggest strength is to take responsibility. If something needs doing, I'll make sure it gets done one way or the other. That can also be a weakness, because sometimes I can get sucked into things. But regardless of what happens with Tailormade, I am responsible for it, and I've always had that viewpoint. It has been a big strength.
I know you mentioned weakness, but what would you say is your biggest weakness?
I'd say the same thing.
Perfect.
Do you know what? This is my biggest weakness. My biggest weakness is, so my default, like, as a business owner, a lot of us start as technicians, where we're coaches, and we do things. We coach every single day of the week. That is our default. As you're scaling a business, you can't just continue to work your way out of situations. Working your way out of situations will only get you so far. At some stage, to get to the higher levels of the game, you need to think your way out of situations. And I still have a habit of just working my way out of situations.
Good. Last question. We've 18 staff at Tailormade. If you could pick someone within the Tailormade team currently that you admire, who would it be and why?
Okay, we actually did this at quarterly meetings, so I'm going to have to pick somebody different. I'll pick somebody different today, so I could pick any of them, really. I'm going to go with, for reasons that I've already mentioned, I'm actually going to say Dylan Durney.
Cool.
The reason why I'm going to pick Dylan Durney, and I've already discussed it, to have the humility to take on board the feedback and all the rest of it that we had to give him maybe this time last year, and then take that on board, put in the reps, put in the work, go through, a couple of months of, a shit time, went through a shit time for a while, and the gym had been going through a shit time for a while, come out the other side of it, get to where he is now, where he's leading the team that he is now, giving them the feedback that they need to develop, driving his facility forward to where it is. I mean, that's just, the value that he came up with for a company of Kaizen. I just think that is really cool, and I admire that.
On Dylan. So I'm going to leave it there. If you're a potential client that you've been watching us, following us on social media, you're thinking about joining us, make sure to reach out to myself or Gavin on Instagram, go onto our website. If you're somebody who's a PT that is looking to get into the industry and wants work experience, or somebody that's looking to come and work with us, please reach out to myself or Gavin. Make contact with the team. We are looking at hiring some new coaches for 2025. Other than that, I really enjoyed this conversation. I think it was really, really in depth, and I'm glad we spent the time. So, Gavin,
thank you, Fionn.